What is that crazy atmospheric?
I think it's on James's side, but I'm not quite sure. So while we wait, we'll just show you kind of how to get to Beehive and what to use. So you just Google DSU Beehive. The first kind of link, that'll be us. And then you can enter. And the first page is kind of the help desk. So you can just put your name, email, whatever program you're having trouble with, and then just the question that you have. And then we can have someone that will get back to you as soon as possible on that. And then there's also tutorials, which we're going to be updating as the year goes on. So different programs, if you need any help with any of them. So AutoCAD, Adobe's, any of these will have, you can click on and there'll be kind of help sheets to get you started. And any lectures that we have over Zoom this semester will be located here, along with some other tutorials.
I think we can start by introducing ourselves, and maybe they'll show up in a couple minutes. I couldn't tell if I muted myself for the last, while you were talking, Sean, and I couldn't tell whether it's better or whether it continued or not. But
it's Sean's fault.
I just muted myself and it was still going, so I'm going to leave it on James.
I don't know. Okay. So I'm James Grafe. I'm a 5th year architecture student. And I am half of your tutorial team today. We're going to be talking about scanning and printing and files. So we thought it was important to have a Mac and a PC perspective. So I'll be doing the Mac side, and I'm also in studio, so I can show you the scanning and printing facilities.
And I'm Sean Bertella. I'm a 5th year architecture as well. And I'll be going over the same things, but kind of PC side.
So we can start with scanning. So perfect. Can you see this?
Yes.
This is one of the 2 scanners. This is on the 4th floor, and there's another one on the 2nd floor near the 2nd years, I think, across from the 1st year, on the other side of Stuckman as the first years. So when you need to scan something inside, you'll come to one of these. You can also come to the page wide, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So these scanners are pretty simple. It's just a bed scanner. So you're putting your piece in the scanner and you're lining it up to this corner. So an A4 or normal sized letter paper would come to here and to here. So you'll put your scan in like that. And if you'd like to use the PCs to scan, it's also relatively simple. You click Epson Scan, which will bring up this Epson Scan window. And you can preview the scan. So it'll do a quick scan. Then you can select a portion of the scan, or you can not select anything and it'll scan the entire bed. But if you select a portion and you select where it goes here, and the type of file, click OK, it'll start scanning. And show up there. So that's the way that everybody can do it. But if you'd like to, you can, oh, back to this. You can take the scanning cord, unplug it from the computer. It's the white one. And plug it into your own PC or Mac. So I'll screen share from my Mac. On a Mac, yeah. Sure. That's also, you go to Finder and Applications. It'll show up in the Applications folder. So when image scanner or image capture opens, you'll click on the Epson printer. It's connecting to the scanner right now, and it'll automatically do a preview scan. So it'll show you what it sees, and then here you have to select something. So if you don't select anything, it won't let you do a final scan, but you can either select the entire bed or just a small part of it. And then you can do the same thing. Scan to the desktop and the format. So the normal resolution that you'll use is 300 DPI. That's a standard, but if you're trying to blow something up, you might want it more higher resolution, so that you might go to 450 or 600. And if you want to scan something to a smaller size, you might go down to 150 or 72 or something. Usually they go in fractions and multiples of 300. So do people know what DPI means? You can type it in the chat. Actually, I'm not sure if I can see the chat while I'm screen sharing.
There's a dots per inch. We got a response.
Yes, exactly. So there's PPI and DPI, dots per inch and pixels per inch. Pixels are when you're on a computer screen and they're showing pixels, and dots is when you're looking at a scan or a print, and it's the specific points that the scanner is picking up or the printer is putting down. So 300 means 300 dots per inch in a vertical inch and a horizontal inch, and that's each square, so then that repeats for the size of the document. And then there are a bunch of formats. So JPEG is a standard image format. You can also do a TIFF, which is extremely uncompressed. So it's high quality, but it can be a huge file size depending on how it's made. And the other typical one is PNG. So PNG is kind of in between those two. It doesn't do the compression by looking at two pixels that are next to each other and kind of averaging them, but it can still so it'll be a larger file size than a JPEG, but probably smaller than a TIFF. So with this scan selected, I can scan it. And then it'll show up in the scan results and also on the desktop. Right now I selected 2 different scans for it to do, so it'll scan both of those separately. So it's nice to have it on your own computer, because then you don't have to email it to yourself or put it on Box, like we'll talk about in a little bit. But you have to remember that other people will be using the scanner too. So once you're done, make sure you unplug this and plug it back into the USB slot on the computer. So sometimes you won't be in Stuckman, and instead you'll want to just take a picture of your work. And I've heard that that's kind of what you've been doing. Is that true? You can, what? In the chat, if you say what you've been doing to scan things or take pictures of them in the past or up to now. Yes.
So no,
What?
you, James.
Nice. So these are some of the things that we're going to talk about. People have been talking about scanning on the Notes app. And I assume you all know kind of how to do that. You go into the Notes app, and I'll share my screen on my phone. Or actually, I'll just talk about it. You go into the Notes app and you click add and take a photo. You might not know that you can also do it from your Mac. So if you right click on the desktop and click import from iPhone, you can take a photo, or you can scan documents. So from there, it'll ask you, it'll open a window on your phone, and it'll, just like in the Notes app, it'll scan something for you, and it'll show up as a PDF on your desktop. Sean, do you want to talk about Adobe Scan?
Yeah. So another option that you have is Adobe Scan. So it's a free app store, and for Androids. And here I'll kind of show you, like, so here's this first image is kind of a scan for my notebook. It has like off-white colored paper. So this is just a photo and then editing, brightness, and all that. But then Adobe Scan is really nice because it can come out with a really crisp image like this, where it will make the paper all white, and it does all the options for you, exposure, brightness, contrast, and all of that, and it gives you one perfect scan, which can be another option.
So when you're scanning in general or taking a picture, you want to make sure that your context, the conditions outside of the camera are also the best to get you the best quality image. So you're trying to make sure that the entire surface of the scan is going to be a similar amount of light is hitting it. So you don't want any shadows, but you also want the same light color. So you don't want an LED shining on one direction and incandescent on the other, because then you'll have to color correct in Photoshop or something else to get it back to a good scan. So it's especially helpful to go outside when you're scanning, especially when it's overcast, because then the light is diffuse, but also the sun's light is the color that is just like a natural white. So it won't have, you won't have to color correct it as much as if you were scanning from incandescent or LED or fluorescent bulb. And you also want to make sure that your background is different enough that you can capture the square, or your phone can automatically capture the square. But you want to make sure that it's not so different. You don't really want a black background and a white image, because the phone can have problems with contrast then. So if you have like a brown or a gray, that's the best background to scan something white. We've heard that a bunch of you have had problems with HEIC photos. So we'd like to show some ways to get around it. First, I'll share on a Mac. It's pretty easy on a Mac. HEIC was designed by Apple as a more efficient way to share pictures between specifically iPhones and computers. So it works pretty well. You can just open an HEIC photo in preview. And if you'd like to not have it in HEIC, you can export and change the format to a JPEG or a PNG or a TIFF. But you should be able to open an HEIC photo in Photoshop if you right-click and go to Open with Photoshop. So it works pretty seamlessly on a Mac, but on a PC, it's a little different. So I'll let Sean talk about that. Sean, I think you're muted.
Am I now? All right, I'll redo that. All right, so here's your regular photo opener on a PC. So here's an HEIC format, and if we want it to be JPEG, all you have to do is click Edit. And you don't have to change anything about it. You can just save a copy. And the default will be a JPEG. And then you can just save that image as a JPEG, and now you have both. So it kind of takes one extra step, but it's fairly simple. At the end of this semester or next, Penn State's going to be switching to OneDrive. So we would suggest just using OneDrive. That way all your files will be at the same place for your 5 years. So how to get there initially. So you can just Google PSU OneDrive. And the first one, products, and log in. And I'm already logged in, but at the login page, it will bring up just the regular PSU login, and there you'll put in your PSU email and password. And then this will be your first page. And so what we want to utilize is OneDrive. So here's where all your files will be. And it works similar to just regular File Explorer or Box if you're familiar with it. You can make new folders. However, this one's nicer than Box in how all Microsoft documents can be synced immediately. So Word, Doc, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Forms, which is a lot nicer because currently we have to use Box and kind of Google Docs and Sheets. So this is nice because they can work together. So
as a little history while you're talking, Sean, Box is what Penn State used to have as their cloud storage option. So that's what we've been dealing with for the past 5 years, but they're starting to switch to OneDrive. So your year is the first year that'll be using OneDrive exclusively. So you can start putting your stuff on OneDrive and you won't have to deal with Box at all. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, so folders, you can just make them, you know, any name, and they work the same as being able to go in, file. That's fairly straightforward. One thing that I would recommend is whenever you are working in, so let's say your first year, one thing that I always find helpful is sync. So traditionally I always use Box Sync, but now there's OneDrive Sync. So what this will do is I will reshare the screen. So the one new thing is if you go to File Explorer, it opens up, it will automatically have this OneDrive on the side. So it says OneDrive, Pennsylvania State University. So if you just click that, here's all my files. So even the file folder I just made, and then all my files will be located right here. So it kind of takes out the step of having to go to OneDrive, download a file, open the file, work on it, save it, and then re-upload. So I'd highly recommend using the sync for OneDrive, how I kind of have similar with OxSync. And that way all my files can be right here. So that's about it with OneDrive, unless there's any questions in particular.
Does anybody have questions about anything that we've talked about so far? Okay, feel free. Oh. Yes, it's pretty much the same on a Mac. So there's the web application and then sync. So this is the first out of 4 tutorials that we'll be doing about how to, this first one was about getting the documents on the computer. And in the future, we'll be talking about how to edit those documents in Photoshop and then edit them more in Photoshop and Illustrator, and then how to put those scans and Photoshop documents together onto a final board. And then you can print that out on the page wide, like we talked about. So you can, those will be coming Wednesdays. But to get ready for those, you don't have to do this now, but if you'd like to, you can get the Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign apps so that you can follow along with us next week and in the following weeks, and so that you can use Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign. So to do that, Penn State has a deal with Adobe that students and faculty can get all of the Creative Cloud for free while you're a student. So if you go to adobe.psu.edu, and Sean will put that in the chat, you'll be able to download the Creative Cloud app. Sign up for free. And you'll go through this screens and you'll eventually download the app. And from the Creative Cloud app, you can, I have to update it, but usually you'll have Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, all of the other Creative Cloud apps there, dozens of them, but you can install and update them from this app. And then you can close the Creative Cloud app and you'll be able to open the individual apps like Illustrator. So if you're interested, you can do that now or within the next week, and you'll be able to follow along while we're doing stuff on Zoom. And you'll also be able to use it in Studio and things if you haven't already.
So now we will move into remote access. So this can be beneficial if your computer isn't quite able to handle Adobe products or Rhino, SketchUp, anything that you're going to be using. So I will share my screen. And so we all got this email from Verdad at some point. You guys received it, and it will say the remote access instructions are here, which you can go to, and then I will be showing you how to connect from PC. So if I click how to connect from PC, it's pretty straightforward. So the first thing that you need is to connect to the PSU VPN. So many of you probably don't have that. So if you were to just Google PSU Cisco AnyConnect, And then using VPN on Windows, right here is where you can download the VPN for your personal computer. And then once you have that, you can go ahead and turn it on. So I go to Cisco AnyConnect Secure Mobile Client, just search it in my search bar. It will come up, and then I can say connect. And I have to put in my password. I apparently don't have my password. Okay, so I'm in, finally. So it'll establish the session, and now I'm connected to the Penn State VPN. So the first thing that I do is open the virtual classroom locations. So here are all the computer labs that we have access to, and it kind of tells you what they are. So you can see that some are Macs, some have CAD and Rhino, some have reality modeling and SketchUp. So let's say, for example, we need Rhino. I can click on this, and the red ones are people are already there. So we're going to click on a green one, and blue ones off. So we'll also don't use those. So we'll go to this green one, and it will say all the programs that it has. So Zoom, V-Ray for Rhino, Rhino 6, Autodesk. And so let's say we need Adobe Creative Cloud and Autodesk. So this one has it. So I can click connect, and it will come down. So I can just open it as you would any file and say connect. And then once again, it's asking me for my password. And that's just your no, I think I had this problem before. Okay. And then you can just say yes. And now I'm into a basic computer. So log in, it will sign me in. And one thing with these is they can be a little bit slow or finicky. So try to use them kind of with ease. And whenever you are running them, try not to have a lot of files open on your computer as well, because it can kind of send it into overdrive. So now I'm signed in, and then I have access to all the programs on this computer. So I can open up Rhino, Edge, along with any of the programs it has. So any questions on that?
And the process is pretty similar on a Mac. And if you're connecting from your own Mac to a Mac on campus, it's actually a little bit easier, but it explains it all in the document. I can put that document in the chat.
And then to end, you just click the X and OK.
There was one question while you were talking, Sean, about where you go to print. So you only have to go to the Borland building once. You'll go there once per semester. And that's to set up the account. And then when you're actually using the account to print and plot, you'll use the plotters in Stuckman. So on The fourth floor are these two plotters and the page wide. And then on the second floor, there are also other plotters. So this is the main staircase. You walk right out and you'll be faced with the page wide. And then these media cabinets, the wood boxes, are where you'll find the scanners and the printers. So there's, on the fourth floor, there's one in the middle over there, and then one over here, black and white and a color. And it's the same on the second floor there and on the other side. So if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in chat and we can talk a little bit about Beehive while you're doing that. So me and Sean are here because we're in Beehive. Beehive is a group in Stuckman that helps younger students by tutoring them about technology and software and anything on a computer pretty much. So we have a website. We do these tutorials. We'll be doing 3 more with you. And we also have online materials and we can do in-person tutoring. So Sean can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so just kind of as needed as we get kind of more into the swing of things, when you guys kind of have more problems, if there seems to be some sort of common problem that all of you guys are having trouble with Illustrator or anything, we either do kind of one-on-one tutoring over Zoom or kind of a mini group session if there's a lot of questions. So again, I kind of put it in at the beginning, but if everyone didn't get a chance to do it, there's a doc or a form that I just put back into chat. And if you could fill that out, that'd be great. And that just kind of will let us know what kind of problems are common and what programs some of you may already know or need more help with.
And we know that you're, it's a little different this semester that since you're not always in studio as first years, if you have any questions about anything architecture related or school related, feel free to ask those too.
Okay, so if there aren't any real questions, that's about what we have for this lecture.
Thank you all for listening, and I hope it was helpful in some or all aspects. So thanks a lot. I think your studio professors, what?
I just said thank you.
Oh, thanks. I think your studio professor